You're listening to Wonderful Life with Tom Rohr. From Fayetteville to Pottersville, from Rogers to Bedford Falls, we're discovering how one person's life can have an effect on so many other lives. Our guest today is Mike Shea. Welcome, Mike.
Howdy.
Well, for those listeners who don't know Mike Shea, can you tell us a little bit about you and your family?
Sure. I'm married for 44 years in March.
Congratulations.
To my wife, Ann. We have 2 kids, Danny, who is working at Walmart, and my daughter, Katie, is the editor of Arkansas Life magazine. So we have 2 grandkids, Elliot and Ren, who is 3 and 7 months old. They're now the apple of our eyes now.
Okay. Now, where are you originally from, Mike?
I'm from Detroit, well, the Detroit area.
Okay.
I grew up in Allen Park, Michigan, which is the home of the Detroit Lions now, our claim to fame, I guess.
Okay.
I went to Catholic high school, St. Francis Cabrini, there in Allen Park. Went to Central Michigan University, that's where I met Ann. Graduated a long time ago.
We won't give any dates.
Yes,
so.
no dates. Did graduate though.
Okay.
Surprised my parents. No. And then Ann and I got married, and the year after we graduated from college, and then I started working for the city of Allen Park right away, right after.
Okay.
Like the day I graduated.
So what was that first job?
The first thing I did for the city was the civic arena manager. I ran an ice rink.
I think you're the only person that I know that ran an ice rink.
Yeah.
That's just not real common around here. I guess there's one in Springdale now.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, they're an interesting animal.
Okay.
Of course, in Michigan, we had hockey or figure skating, September to May. The challenge that I had was to make sure that we rented as much ice as we could, obviously, but then to find something to do from May to September.
Oh.
You could try and run an ice rink, an ice arena with ice the entire year, but the cost was astronomical to keep the compressors running. So that was my task. So I started rock concerts.
Oh, that's what you do in the off season?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, it didn't last very long. I met through a bunch of people, I met a couple promoters, and they did some shows, and the last one we did was Aerosmith, when they were just taking off. And the ice arena was right in the middle of downtown Allen Park, which isn't very big, but it was in a shopping district, a lot of parking. But when you put 5,000 kids in an ice arena to see Aerosmith, there's no parking for anybody in the whole world.
Oh.
The cops didn't like a whole bunch of kids in the ice arena. It got blown out of proportion. We had 5,000 kids, but the headline wasn't that we had 5,000 kids and made a lot of money for the ice arena. It was that 45 kids got arrested. I said, well, 45 out of 5,000 is not bad.
Just a small percentage.
Yeah, but the powers that be decided they no longer cared about the ice arena making money if it had to be with rock concerts. So that was the last hurrah was. So I think we had 6 or 7 leading up to Aerosmith, and then that blew it.
And then you knew that probably wasn't the best use of that arena during that time. Or maybe it was, but
I still considered it the best use.
Okay.
But if I wanted to survive,
right,
I knew that was the end of that. So the next year, I did the LIVONIA Kennel Club Dog Show. And everybody thought that was a great deal, great idea.
So like one of those dog shows that they have on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it's as big as that one.
Really?
Well, I don't know. I mean, as far as I don't know how many dogs they have, but we had something like 1,600 dogs in this show. It's 1,600 dogs. That's a lot of cars right there, right? And then all the people that came to see the dogs, well, they didn't arrest anybody, thank God, because it was all upper crust, dog lover type things. But they gave out a slew of parking tickets. that was the last time we had that kind of...
The city probably liked that, though, huh?
Well, no. Yeah, they kind of did.
They got some new police cars that year.
Yeah, but the homeowners and shop owners, and so then they decided, they're right, they better not do this anymore. So we went back to just being an ice arena and doing odds and end things, and nobody cared about whether the ice arena made money anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it sounds like you had a lot of freedom to make decisions in that.
It was. I was really a young guy too. When Aerosmith was there, I was 24, 25 years old.
Wow.
Which didn't go real well with the cops either, because I was like one of those punk kids.
Who's in charge here?
Yeah. Then I was bored in the summertime, so I asked the Parks and Recreation director if I could be of any help running the recreation programs, especially the summer ones. So I ended up running some programs, and then the next year I became the director of arena and program. I did all the programs. We did the first survey of Allen Park, and we wanted to do a random sample, and that just blew everybody's mind. And so we actually sent out surveys to every citizen in town. And they found out that over, what was it? It was like 51% of the community was over the age of 55. Nobody, I guess, paid any attention to that, because it had been a suburb and growing community. And, well, all of a sudden, the people that were the original 1950s kind of people were now...
The greatest generation.
Yeah. Now they were 20 years older or 25 years older. Well, They were all in their 50s and 60s.
Okay.
At the same time, the school system was shutting elementary schools, or some of them, because they used to have one in virtually every 3 blocks. So they started shutting down. Well, we took over one of the elementary schools and made it a community center. So I was in charge of that in the ice arena. From there, I went to the city of Riverview, and that's where I got into golf course management and real facility management. And I was the director of Parks and Recreation there. We did all kinds of stuff. We added 9 holes on the golf course, and we built the big clubhouse, and then we built a ski area.
Was there a mountain there?
That was man-made.
Okay.
It was a trash mountain.
Oh.
We called it Mount Trashmore. Well, that was the nickname.
Uh-huh.
And everybody in town knew it as Mount Trashmore. It was a very lucrative business for a city to have a landfill. But one of the things about a landfill is you have to have an end use for it. And we had gotten to a height that, I don't know, licensing people, probably the natural resources people, said we had to do something to prove that we were really going to make this a ski area. So we had to build a ski area, so we did. And they turned it over to me and the landfill director, he knew an awful lot about bulldozers and dirt. And me, I knew a little bit about golf and recreation. We looked at each other and said, "Do you know anything about ski areas?" I said, "No." And he said, "I don't know either." So we took off on education. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. We did learned how to make snow, how to build chairlifts. I mean, it was everything.
So is Mount Trashmore still there, you think?
It is still there. Shortly after I left, they closed the ski area. It was rushed to get open. It really didn't have the height it needed to be a real serious ski area. While it sounds like a piece of cake to run a ski area in Michigan, the city of Detroit, and we were south of the city of Detroit, so the city of Detroit kind of controls the environment around there as far as systems coming in. It's like here in Rogers, we see thunderstorms coming in, and a lot of times they go either north or south because they run into the plateau. Well, in Michigan, they either went north of Detroit or south of Detroit. So we lived in the downriver area, and there was 1.3 million people in the 13 communities that surrounded us. So within, 15 miles of the ski area, we had 1.3 million people. So the golf course did great. We had 27 holes, played 95,000 rounds a year, because we were the only at the time, nobody else was thinking that a city could run a golf course, I guess. I don't know. And so we were rocking and rolling on the golf course side. And the ski area, unfortunately, because of the environment, the city of Detroit area only gets 29 inches of snow a year. Most of it comes in bunches. 29 inches does not compute in a ski area. That's like, and we would have weather like here. One day it's 6 below zero, and the next day it's 45, and then it's 6 below zero, and then it's 45. So the snow was always melting. We opened, the first hill was real small, and people could hardly get down it. It was pretty funny. But we got better at grooming, and we got better at ski maintenance, and we could at least get them down the hill. We knew we needed to get bigger fast, so we accelerated some of the elevation, built 2 more chairlifts, got busy, but the weather was never going to.
But your snow wasn't great.
When we had it, it was great. But when, you'd spend 6 or 7 days of laying down a whole bunch of snow so you could ski, and then ski for 3 days, and then a warm front would come in and you'd lose, and then you'd fight the battle, and then it would rain, and it would wash all the.
Then you had to start all over.
You didn't start from scratch, but you started from ice.
Yeah.
So then you had to lay down all the snow, and it was real challenging. And it turned out to be, so when we were open, we had to be really open. So we skied night and day. Weekends, Friday and Saturday nights, we'd run until, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So we'd have 3 shifts of skiing on Fridays and Saturday nights.
So there's probably people still talk about that.
I'm sure that they do, yeah, but because of the way that it was rushed and the construction and a lot of when we went from one height to the next lift, landfill director was real worried about it because it hadn't sat long enough. We had to make all of our own snow, so we had to put pipes everywhere. And one little leak in a pipe that's got 400 pounds of pressure on it that could put a lot of water into a landfill, and it did, and became a big issue. So I think they had to shut it down as far as a ski area, and they turned it into they used the chairlift. Last time I was there, they had turned the ski area into the crux of the ski area into a driving range, and you could actually ride a chairlift to the top and hit golf balls up there if you wanted.
So like an elevated.
Real elevated. Wow. You could see downtown Detroit from up on top of the hill.
Well, that sounds like fun.
It was, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess. I don't know how successful that is, but they had the chairlift and it was paid for, so I guess why not use it type of thing. So I don't know exactly what they're doing with it right now, but it was fun. And because our golf course was so busy, as soon as there was no snow, we were playing golf. And
people that are pretty hardy then.
Oh, yeah. So we'd have golfers. We had a Winterfest one year. We had more golfers than skiers. All of a sudden, it was 65 degrees or something, and we couldn't ski at all. We had tee times on the golf course. That was the funniest Winterfest of all, but Winterfest. We're all getting sunburned. It was pretty funny. Yeah, we did a lot of crazy things in Riverview. So we got used to a lot of different experiences when we were there. This golf course, at least at 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, it's dark and you were done. At the ski area, 8:30 came, you were just starting another shift.
The lights were on and you were ready to go.
Yeah, and then at midnight you got rid of all the people and put out all the snowmakers. So it was a 24-hour job. It was 24/7 for 3 months.
Okay.
And I lasted 7 years on the ski area, and then I said, I'm going to start looking for other employment, and it's going to be far enough south that they could never have a ski area again.
Oh, okay. You didn't even want to be tempted.
Nope.
Okay.
And I said, there is no way I'm getting back into that.
So was that when you moved to Arkansas?
Yeah, we moved to Bella Vista.
Okay. And you moved really before the big move of people here.
Oh, my. Yeah, 1988. 49 wasn't open when we first got here, so the trip down to Fayetteville was, from Bella Vista, you took 71B all the way down to Fayetteville. Mm-hmm. It was an hour drive. It was a long ways to get to Fayetteville. The little airport in Fayetteville was all you could, prop planes. First prop plane I ever flown on was out of Fayetteville. I went, hope this thing gets in the air. Then I learned that the real challenge was landing it. The promenade was a farm. You had Fred's, Taylor the Trout, and AQ Chicken House. was about the only 3 restaurants that anybody knew of.
Things have changed a little bit.
Things have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, the trip from Rogers to Bentonville, you went past 28th Street, and there was nothing but farmland between 28th Street and Rogers, virtually. I mean, there are a couple stray buildings, and Glasgow's restaurant. That's it. We've seen most of the growth happen.
So when you started out in Bella Vista, were all the golf courses built?
No. When I got here in 88, the Highlands was getting ready to open. So it had never had played any golf on it yet when I got here. But everything else was open. And then Metfield was the executive golf course. Dogwood Hills wasn't part of the deal. Mm-hmm. So I think the sign used to say 2,600 people lived in Bella Vista at the time.
So there are probably more visitors a lot of the times than there would be people who actually live there.
Oh, most of the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. The amount of actual residents was really small.
So did they have things that they wanted you to accomplish? I mean, up to this point, it sounds like you've been pretty creative within your jobs and getting some business and some new business. Did you have the same kind of challenges at Bella Vista?
Bella Vista was a piece of work. It was a different time. General manager at the time was convinced that Bella Vista needed new directions. He had his goal was to increase the, in quotes, professionalism of the people who were running the place. And he just wanted to.
And that's probably where you came in too, right?
I was one of those kinds of people that he wanted to bring in. The food and beverage guy he brought in. The public works director was, a new public works director came right pretty close after that. So it was he was probably tasked with, he just set it as his goal to increase the professionalism of the people running the organization. So in fact, we had marching orders. The board, however, of directors had no such plan.
So what was their plan?
I don't know what their plan was.
But it wasn't that.
It wasn't that. My first meeting, when I interviewed, everything, I was supposed to be in charge of golf courses and recreation and you name it. I had tennis. Okay. My very first meeting with the board of directors, I was introduced, and one of the board members said, not to me, but to the general manager. Now remember, he doesn't have anything to do with golf. I just was kind of dumbstruck. I couldn't believe, I didn't know where that came from. All the other board members went, yep, that's right. General manager didn't say anything. After the meeting, I went to Jim. I said, what's that all about? He goes, don't worry about that. So, it was a different time, for sure. They were pretty insular. I mean, they were protective, I guess,
Yeah. Well, evidently they accepted you after a while.
Oh, I don't know if I was ever accepted. The one thing I knew in Allen Park, the one thing I knew in Riverview, and one thing I knew and got to know extremely well in Bella Vista, if you're an agent of change, you are, in the crosshairs of a lot of people. I was always in the crosshairs of somebody. The first 10 years I was there, I have a feeling that every board election had somebody who wanted to get rid of Mike Shea. Pretty weird. So it was.
So that was part of their platform.
Yeah, they would put it in writing. Okay, here we go. But we were doing we changed so much stuff, and in retrospect, it happened really, really fast.
Yeah. Well, and you all kind of hit the peak of golf. It seems to me too, from a playing point of view.
Yeah, for sure. We were still on the rise. From 88 to 98, we had increased substantially from the time I got here to 1999, probably. Mm-hmm. And so that was probably the peak year, as I remember it.
Mm-hmm. And was that the greatest generation just like to play a lot of golf, or was that an economic thing?
I think it was more, it had to be economics. really, Bella Vista didn't. It was very early on in the Cooper community type of developments. Cooper was very early on in that type of community. There was some out in Arizona, and there was probably some in smaller scale in like Florida. But so he was really at the forefront of that, and not too many people understood how important the golf course was going to be. They just wanted an amenity. So they didn't spend a whole lot of money on the golf courses because they didn't. Now, in today's world, if you were going to develop this kind of a community, one of the first things you do is, try and build the Taj Mahal of golf courses, which is unfortunate in the golf business, by the way, but that's another story. So they didn't spend a whole lot of money getting these golf courses open, and they paid for it. By 1988, they were pretty bad. And the Highlands was like the first golf course that they took the time, they made it kind of a resort golf course. It's probably the best design of their golf courses, and that was because they were starting even the golf course architect that Cooper used was figuring it out. So was the golf business. By 1988, there were some really big things happening in golf course development. So that kind of went on with it. Unfortunately, Cooper Communities was still not enthralled with, or didn't figure that golf courses were all that important. So they didn't put a whole lot of money into the Highlands either necessarily, but it was a better design anyhow. And the part of that reasoning was that they did most of their selling of lots and recruiting of people in Kansas and Iowa and Missouri and Nebraska and Minnesota. And I mean, they weren't bastions of golf type of places. And so when people got here, they learned how to play golf. It wasn't like they knew how to play golf. They didn't come here for golf, in other words. But they started to like it. And realistically, when the first group came in 1972 or whatever it was, or 68, man, there wasn't any, 71B was a dirt road. I mean, so you either played golf or you didn't do anything. So they got used to playing a lot of golf. I mean, that's pretty much all there was, is fishing and golf.
Yeah.
And so, because it was an all-day affair to go anywhere else. And so that kind of mentality continued. Then you started to see new people coming in who were coming because of the golf courses or because of the fishing or because of the area. And those people were pretty young retirees. I mean, they were leaving the auto businesses and military, strong military component. And so they were getting their 30 years in and retiring at 52 or 50. Well, heck, when they came down, they wanted to play a lot of golf. That's what was going on. When the tech bubble burst, it might have been around 2000, everything started to change again. People that had retired early and had invested in technology and made a bunch of money, or, their portfolios had grown and it was good and life was grand. All of a sudden their portfolio shrank and what we saw was those young retirees started going back to work. And that changed the...
And did they move away?
No, most of them stayed.
Okay, but they were working instead of...
But and it also coincided with the area growing.
Yeah.
Offering other things to do. And one of those was work. All of a sudden you had a Walmart store in Bentonville and Rogers and Springdale and wherever. And Harps had stuff going on. And then the vendors needed people. And so that factored into it as well, the need to go back to work. And then there was stuff that they could do. And that changed the complexion of Bella Vista. No longer was it, today's Monday I golf. Tomorrow's Tuesday I fish, Wednesday's golf, Thursday's fish, Friday's golf. That whole thing just kind of blew up in 2000. But it probably everybody changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the area went nuts. When the tech bubble burst, everything else was going wacko. And that changed. And then Bella Vista, because it had the roads, it had electricity, it had all the infrastructure for housing. Well, you could go up there and build a pretty nice house for under $100,000 and started to attract people with kids because of the ability to build a house at a relatively cheap price in a real nice area.
Yeah.
But they weren't golfers. And so as people dropped out of golf and the new people coming in weren't coming in to play golf, they were coming in to live, And that kind of started the trend downward on golf courses.
And it was harder to get there, too, because the traffic picked up.
Well, yeah. I mean, mid-'90s, there was nothing to have. We could have golf leagues in Bella Vista, like you do in big cities, like I was used to. And I had Walmart leagues and a lot of different little industry leagues that came up.
Now, were you in charge of the pools and all the other amenities also?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So.
Yeah, I mean, when I first got here, everything was relatively run down. We had a lot going on back then. We had to do a lot of pool reconstruction. We completely changed the Kingsdale complex. Had to do a lot of work at Metfield. Shoot, I was in charge of the marina for a long time. Reardon Hall, tennis.
Yeah, there's a lot of facilities out there.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think the thing that you're most famous for is starting all the charitable golf events in Bella Vista over the years, and I know a lot of people know you that way. What was your level of involvement with the people who were organizing those type of events?
Well, in the early years, we had the Phillips Classic, and so we had a reputation for being able to do big events. When we made the suggestion to the Phillips Classic people to move from the country club to Kingswood and Birksdale so that they could utilize 36 holes. That kind of opened the eyes of an awful lot of people. And so we had when the Phillips Classic just went away, the year that they made $1 million or whatever, they just figured that they couldn't keep that. And if they weren't going to improve, they didn't want to keep going. And they were under a lot of pressure to make a lot of money. That's when Cancer Challenge type people came to us, so I guess the role that I played was to put them on a course to, make money. They didn't know anything.
So basically to run the tournament for them.
Yeah, I mean, and to give them some credible information as to how to run it and how to make money in golf tournaments. So we would spend an awful lot of time in the early years of any of the events, whether it was Boys and Girls Club, Cancer Challenge, Caring and Sharing, or Sharing and Caring, whatever that one is. There's a bunch of them that followed.
Golf for kids.
Yeah, we'll golf for kids. In the early years, what we had to do is say, okay, it's great. You can make some money on the golf course, but you make more money everywhere else around. The idea is not to have a golf tournament. It's to have a golf event and to make sure that you're getting publicity for your organization, and that's going to lead to people getting involved in it, and increasing your attendance and kind of steering them in the right direction to stay away from it. In the early years, everybody wanted to do a Phillips Classic. They all wanted to bring in celebrities, and oh my goodness gracious. So we spent a lot of time convincing them that was not the right idea.
They kind of would just slow things down a little bit or add some logistics that were...
Yeah, nobody could understand what the problems with, bringing in Phillips Classic numbers of celebrities was.
Right.
I mean, that was a huge undertaking. Thank God I didn't have nothing to do with the celebrity
making that kind of arrangement.
The celebrity side.
Yeah.
Getting them to the golf course and making sure that was our side, and we had enough of a role, but so we did our level best to keep people on the straight and narrow, trying to raise money, and fortunately the community was growing at the time, and there was a lot of people that were able to raise a substantial amount of money. It was kind of
right. Now, did you gather some volunteers to help you with the golf tournaments or the tennis events?
Oh yeah. Well,
so how did that work?
When we moved to the Phillips Classic and it was my very first year, they were wondering how they could raise more money, and I went, well, you got a 36-hole golf course, you should be using it. You have a finite number of holes over here, you have virtually an infinite number of holes over here. So, so we what we did is we went to our golf associations, and when we didn't get enough out of there, we went to churches, and so it was especially for the Phillips Classic, it was a recruiting. We had to go out and recruit volunteers. By the time we got to the Cancer Challenge, we still needed a lot of volunteers, but we didn't need near as many. But we had a nest egg of people that we had worked with and formed relationships with, and
they were motivated by what the charity represented.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And what they wanted to do.
Yeah, so it wasn't a hard sell in Bella Vista.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing about you could count on in Bella Vista was getting people to come out and help. So,
they were looking for something to do.
Yeah, well, but they were that kind of people too. I mean, they were, and I think that they probably still are. I mean, I haven't been there for 10 years or whatever as far as working with them, but yeah, I mean, they were always, if you needed something done, there was a way to get it done, and you just had to get the right person to twist elbows. Once you had him or her.
And you had those right people.
Yeah.
I know a few of those people.
Yeah, once you had them and you could go to them and you go, okay, Ruth, we need this and this and this, and darn, you'd have to slow her down.
All right. Well, so why don't you take me to your transition over to First Tee then?
It was kind of strange. I was familiar with the First Tee organization that was here in town, in the area, because I had all the golf courses. So when they needed something to do or play golf, they eventually would come to us. And so we were working as well as we could with them to try and make the program improve, I guess. And I was in a conversation one day with one of their board of directors, and I guess I kind of said stuff that made some suggestions as to what I thought they should be doing. Mm-hmm. I guess they liked that idea. I had no idea at the time that they were even looking for another executive director. I was just offering my 2 cents for what I saw as a program that was pretty stagnant at the time. And I made some suggestions to this board member, and he said, why don't you come to a board meeting and talk to us? And I went, oh, okay, So I did, and I went, and I guess that was almost my interview with them. That led to being offered the position of executive director. And
okay. So for people who aren't all that familiar with First Tee, what are they all about?
Well, the First Tee is the elevator speech is it's a youth development program. It's not a golf program, but it is teaching young kids to play golf, mm-hmm. which is in and of itself is a great reason to exist, in my opinion. Golf is a lifetime sport. It's something that they're not going to get beat up in. They're not going to, they can do it by themselves. They don't need to have a team of 11. They're not going to get put out in right field if they don't have the wherewithal to be the star player and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So in my estimation, it's a great opportunity for kids to learn how to play golf, and it's something that they can do their entire life. It doesn't end when they're 13 or 14 or 15, which in many cases of baseball, football, that happens. The premise of the First Tee, however, is to utilize what golf brings to the table to teach kids life skills and core values that too will follow them through their life. Because golf is an individual sport, you're on the golf course, there's no referees, there's nobody telling you what club to hit, you're on your own. And so you have to grow up on the golf course. In the same way, you're also taught that being on your own means you have to write your score down and be honest and have integrity. And so their core values emanate right from the sport. And so you can, in teaching the sport, you can teach those core values, and they relate directly to everything else that somebody does. In addition to that, they have a life skills experience component that is, it's all about learning how to become an adult, a person that can be counted on in society. They teach kids how to interact with others. They have a life skill that is all about anger management. There's there's a couple of them for anger management, because you can get pretty angry on a golf course now with yourself. And one of the life skills is a thing that they do a lot of acronyms in the first tee, and one of them is STAR, which is stop, think, anticipate, respond. Well, that translates to everything in the whole world, not just on the golf course. But you can teach stop, think, anticipate, respond while you're teaching the golf swing. Okay, that ball didn't go where you wanted it to go, right? Yeah. So stop and, okay, let's talk about it. Let's think about what went wrong and what can we do to improve that. Okay, now let's try that. And you can do that today. And so there's a lot of those types of things that go on inside the first tee. We had a lot of great volunteer help. And then our staff was, we were all pretty much committed to the goals of of what we were set about to do.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you looking to get a particular kind of child involved in the program, or it was open to anybody who was interested?
It was open to everybody and anybody. One of our main things that we always said was, if you can't afford it, it doesn't make any difference. But yeah, it's open to everyone. After we opened our facility, one of our goals was to particularly try to get girls involved. I just was all about that. I thought that the girls, I don't know, I guess when we first took it over, maybe as much as 80% of our population was boys. Mm-hmm. And that just is wrong. The girls have ample need for what we were doing.
Sure.
But I also said that with the advent of Title IX and everything else, a girl who took over the game, took on the game of golf and became just minimally proficient at it, could eventually get a college scholarship someplace.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that was part of the goal, was to increase girls. Obviously, we were real in tune with trying to get minority populations involved, especially here in Northwest Arkansas, the Hispanic population. We spent a lot of time in schools to do that. We had a program, our national school program that the First Tee offered. We were one of the early adapters of that program, and we were able, I think when I left, the national school program is a program that provides equipment and training for fit PE teachers, so they can teach golf in their program. Oh. And it also has as one of its components the core values and the life skills, so that the teacher can teach the core value in golf. And it was very well received by the different school districts. We were in 13 school districts in Northwest Arkansas and had around 60 schools that we put the program into.
So share with me one of your favorite outcomes from an individual participant point of view.
One of the really great things was keeping a kid in the program through their teens. That was really one of the best things that you could see happen. And we had a program, we still do, probably. We have a program. Mm-hmm. That we called our Heinz Mentorship Program, and it was a program that Walmart and Heinz executives got involved with our kids, and we would have a selection process. We'd pick 16 kids through writing essays and applications to get them to realize what they would have to be doing when they went to college. And so they would write essays and answer questions, and we would select 16 kids, and then they would participate with the Heinz and Walmart execs to play golf, and have lunch, and play golf one time a month through the summer months, May to October. One of the components of that was to give a speech. So each one of the participants had to give a 2 to 3 minute talk in front of the group, again to open their eyes to what it was like to get in front of a group, even though it was small, but they didn't know anybody, and there was, So one of the great things to come out of that was to watch and they had to be 13, and then they obviously graduated out when they left high school. But to have a 13-year-old come in and have their speech completely written out. It was only 2 minutes, it was 3 minutes. It was, and it was always about a core value, so they had to come up with a core value speech. But at 13, they'd come in and they'd read it. They'd never take their eyes off the paper, and it was verbatim what they wrote down. That same boy or girl, when they were a senior in high school and still in the program, would get up and didn't have a card, didn't have anything. They just knew what they needed to say and said it, and they had eye contact, and it was, that progression was always the coolest thing to see. I mean, you could actually, I didn't care whether they played golf or not. I mean, we had some really good golfers in the program, but
it was about the development.
It was about that development that you could see. So that was the coolest thing that to see that progression.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. All right, Mike, you ready to move to the lightning round here?
The lightning round.
The lightning round. I just want to know a little bit more about you. So 3 questions. Okay. First, what's your motto?
I suppose it's, if you're not going forward, you're going backward.
All right. Any explanation of that, of the motto, other than what you see is what you get, I guess?
Well, it kind of comes from just my kind of philosophy on running a facilities over time. If we weren't improving our facilities year after year, then we were going backwards. Mm-hmm. You would lose clientele if you weren't always striving to make something a little bit. It didn't make any difference how big or little it was that the improvement was, but you were trying to improve and go forward. And we put up with a lot of grief because of that, kind of like the Teddy Roosevelt, it's the guy who tries and fails, who he wants on his team type of thing. And that was us.
Okay. I like it. All right. What do you like to do when you're away from work?
Golf.
Okay.
I do. I mean, it's recently retired, and if there's one thing that I did learn early on, was being involved in the golf business was the worst thing that could happen to my golf game. After all these years of taking notes while playing golf, because I had to talk to a superintendent or golf professional or somebody, to go out there and not have to take notes is going to be kind of a joy. I also like to tinker in the dirt type of thing. I like landscaping. We had a house in Bella Vista that offered a lot more opportunity for that. And that's also why we are now in Shadow Valley, so that I don't have near enough tinkering that I have to do anymore.
There's not as much opportunity. Well, good. All right, last one. What's a movie or book that you've read recently that you really like?
Probably the movie I liked the best was Wind River. I don't know if a lot of people saw that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm familiar with that. What was that about?
It's Jeremy Renner, and I don't know who else is in it, but it's about a murder on a Indian reservation in Wyoming. It was eye-opening as far as it was a very well acted movie, well written, all that kind of stuff. But it was eye-opening about what's going on Indian reservations in the West. It was.
Wow. So and this dated back to?
It's like current day.
Oh, it is current day.
Yeah, current day. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
Wind River is a huge, I guess, reservation in Wyoming.
Okay.
And which I obviously didn't know.
Yeah.
I've since met 2 people that live not too far from the Wind River Reservation. I went, golly, that's kind of strange. I said, you should go see that movie. It's really good. And then, I don't know, the last book I read was Beneath the Scarlet Sky, I think is what it was called. That was kind of good. It was about World War II in Italy.
Okay.
And it's, again, eye-opening. When you read or hear or study about World War II, it's normally in France and Germany,
Right. Oh, so you don't see it on the access side of things.
Yeah, so you don't hear or read too much about what happened in Italy. So again, it was a story that really was about trying to save Jews from the Germans. Mm-hmm. But in the telling of the story, you get an awful lot of the history or the background of the Italian campaign, right. Which I knew it was there, but I didn't realize what went on over there. So that was kind of fascinating too.
Very interesting. Well, listen, we really appreciate your time today. Have enjoyed getting to know you a little bit better. I know I've heard some stories for the first time here today.
All right. My pleasure.
You bet. All right. Remember, all we can take with us is that which we give away. So from the richest man in town, Tom Rohr, we'll see you next time.
You're listening to the Padua Podcasts Network, PaduaMedia.com.